Now it's time for the deep dive with Mark LaRouche. Not Mark LaRue, Christina Flynn, Mark LaRouche.
You got it now. This is on fire.
Talking about how to rewrite your future with Mark LaRouche. He's here to help us break down the exact, EXAC. True story. Exact tools and techniques you need to shape the life that you want. Mark, in the previous segment of Center Stage, we talked about the power of storytelling. But let's now talk for the next 13 minutes or so about the specific tools that people need to reshape their future. What are the first steps, Mark, that someone can take to start rewriting their life script? You know how I started the show this morning, we just get up and get going. Don't hit the snooze button. Get freaking going. Create movement to create momentum. But Mark, what are the first steps you would advise someone to start rewriting their life script? Mark LaRouche.
So I think the first thing you need to acknowledge is there's only two ways this is going to work. Either you own your stories or your stories own you. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing I would recommend anybody doing is go through the 3-step process I share around the concept of sourcing your story. So you got to make an inventory of your life stories, from your personal to professional experiences, your highs and your lows. Call it the river of life if you want. So you really take the time, even if you put 20 to 30 minutes on a timer, take a big piece of paper out, pen, and I want you to write down everything that you can think of that shaped you in one way or another. Maybe these are things that you'd rather forget, maybe things you wish you could remember, things that you want to celebrate, things that you want to mourn, all the things that shaped you one way or another. You may not yet see how any of these are relevant to helping you move forward with your message, with connecting with others. But trust me when I say this, do not go over the step. The reason being is, imagine a pantry. I think that's the right word. Sometimes between English in the UK and English in North America, we get a bit of lost in translation. I think it's called pantry, where you put like all your food and all that stuff, right? So sometimes you don't know what you want to cook tonight. So you want to get all your pantry out to see what's still fresh, what's out of date, what do you want to disregard, what do you want to keep, what goes well together. Same thing, right? You're going to source your stories. Once you go through the process of sourcing your stories, what you want to do is you want to look at, okay, what are some of the stories that I feel like are really uncomfortable to share? Mm-hmm. Some of them might be because they're still open wound stories, like whatever you want to call them, little T, big T trauma, stuff that just you might want to take best with a therapist or a mental health professional, a really trusted friend, whatever it is. Those might not be the best stories yet to share in public. There might be one day, but maybe not at this stage. Then the next thing you want to do is you look at the next level of stories, which is like, hey, these feel a little bit edgy to share, but I feel like they're holding me back as long as I hide away from them or I'm afraid of sharing them. Then you take the 3-step process I shared previously in the show about the 3 C's. And then the third step is you start sharing them, and they sharpen as you share. And I learned this actually when I used to hang out with a comedian called Trevor Noah in South Africa when I used to live there. And I saw him pretty much every evening go out into small comedy bars and clubs and just practice. And he would just share his stories, and you would see the impact that he would have. You would see the joke that would land, what wouldn't. You would craft, shape, shift, deliver, and practice. So your story sharpens as you share it. Mm-hmm. And I think eventually what I've seen, and I don't know if anybody can relate to this on the show this morning, but there are certain parts of ourselves that we deem to be unlovable, that we deem to be embarrassing, that we deem to be shameful, that we might have guilt around, whatever you want to call it. The moment you can own those stories and acknowledge how they have shaped you, but they don't have to define who you are, and that you can actually use them to leverage, to land a message, connect with an audience, or share a message, then it becomes one of the most powerful things you can do. And I think that's how you propel yourself moving forward, at least in your life.
John,
oh, man. Oh, yeah. No, the idea that I guess the worst challenges, the worst situations, just the biggest traumas in our lives are actually blessings. When we can look at things from the other side, it's a life-changing ordeal. People get trapped in either this victim mentality, this learned helplessness, where everything that happens to them, their story is that's why they don't have what they want, because this and this happened to me. How about this? And for me, I was a dumb little son of a bitch. Thank fucking God, because I would not have developed this massive problem-solving skill to survive, so to speak. And I leverage that into the life I want. I just love what you're talking about, brother. It's the things that happen to you. They're blessings. They're not curses.
Yeah, because you can't heal what you don't reveal.
Yeah.
I wanted to add something too. I mentioned Trevor Noah practicing, and we had a whole episode on reps, I think last week or the week before. But reps are everything. And that applies to even storytelling. We talk about it with working
100%.
out. We talk about it with business and family, but it applies to storytelling as well. And then you mentioned, I guess, just being scared to tell certain parts of you or certain stories about you. And Johnny always says, pull your pants down a little bit. So, but I think what helps with sharing those vulnerable parts about yourself is realizing that everybody has their bullshit. Like everybody has been embarrassed, has been heartbroken, has been hurt, lied to. That helps me be a little more vulnerable. So I just wanted to add to what you were saying pretty much.
Yeah.
Love that.
I think you're absolutely right, Marty. And as we've done this show together, we keep getting these reps in every single day and getting more comfortable ourselves. In many ways, Mark, we're like Trevor Noah right now, doing our little thing to our 1,000 people, few hundred people as we work our way towards SoFi Stadium. Yeah. Right. So we know one day we're going to wake up in an arena of 100,000 people. But right now we're putting in the reps, right? Working on our story. But Mark, there's some people listening right now that still haven't grabbed the Kool-Aid that Marty's serving up, grab the Kool-Aid that Johnny's serving up, or grab the Kool-Aid Keith's serving up. And they're thinking that their future is impossible. It's too late. Or they just don't have the tools. And they go, nah, I'm looking at my watch, Mark, not too late. I'm just stuck in my career, stuck in my job. I'm done. I don't got no story to tell. What are you saying to that person? They don't have the tools. They don't know how to get started. What do you say to that person who says that, fuck it, man. I'm just rolling over, hitting the snooze button, and my future to change my future is impossible. Mark LaRouche.
If you believe it is, then it probably is, right? If you've already given up before you started. The one thing I always say to people is, it's over the day you die. That's it. That is literally the day that it's over, is the day you die. Until then, you always have an opportunity. I remember I used to run master classes around like how to find meaning and purpose in your work and that kind of stuff. And I used to share a few slides. One of them was Morgan Freeman. I think Morgan Freeman got his break in like late 50s. Like that's when he started getting a break in his career. There are people starting business in their 70s. Like there is no like date of expiration unless it's your death. That's it. You could argue like even after you die, you could leave like a book behind that could continue after you're long gone. But I want to say is this, and I talked about this recently, it's the reason why change feels so hard is that it's not logical, it's biological. Like you can get inspired by these conversations today. You could go, yeah, I need to get the reps. I need to get my works out. And you're right. And then something will happen. As Eyal talks about in Indistractable, it's like time management or even weight management. It's not logical. It's emotional. It's actually pain management. So you've got to understand that your body is fighting against you to do something that feels scary because it wants you to survive. It wants you to stay. And even though we're born for greatness in a way, we are biologically wired to be afraid of the unknown, to want to minimize energy consumption, to seek pleasure, to avoid pain. So all these things are playing against you. So it takes a certain commitment. And I will finish with this. This is what Dr. Valerie Young taught me on my podcast, who studied imposter syndrome. And she said, the last thing to change are your feelings. And I want to say that one more time. The last thing to change are your feelings, meaning if you wait to feel a certain way before you act, you're doomed. Because it's actually the opposite. Taking that first step, starting to make some strive towards those goals. That's your fitness, whether it's your career, your business, your relationships, your family. Making those first steps is what will then change the emotion that you're waiting to feel before you start. But if you wait for it to come, it never happens.
Wow. Marty, Johnny, Mark's dropping nuggets for us this morning. But here's the thing. Here's the takeaway, nation. As Mark has said, rewriting your future is about two things. And no, it doesn't involve the snooze button. Rewriting your future is about action and intentionality. That's it. It's as simple as that. It's about starting small and making choices that move toward the life that you want. And as you heard in my accountability check-in, start rewiring your brain and thinking about what you have achieved instead of what you're going to achieve. Mark, thanks for hanging out with us this morning. Thanks for bringing the energy.
Powerful, brother. Powerful stuff.
Mark, how can folks find you? How can folks connect with you? How can folks find you? And how can folks get some of that storytelling out of Mark LaRouche?
So my website is Mark LaRouche. That's MarkLeruste.com. You can also find me on Storycast. That's CAST.co. But mostly I hang out on LinkedIn. I'm going to be honest, I'm not on Instagram as much as I used to. I do pop in every once in a while. But I'd love to hear if anything sparked any curiosity. Even if you've got anything that you'd feel challenged by what we talked about today. And if you're like, actually, I'm not quite sure about that. hit me up. I appreciate Christine with the K to put you, Keith, on my radar and for inviting me onto the show and hanging out with you all. I'm going to check you all out on social media and make sure that I connect with you both, all three of you. And thanks for having me, man. It's been awesome to come on a morning show in the afternoon here in France. So
that's it. So Mark, we got this morning show here. One day for the morning show in France. That's the ambition. Maybe you can be one of our hosts over there. So hang out with us and we'll rock and roll there into the future. But hey, have yourself a great afternoon. Thanks for joining us today here in the lab. Mark LaRouche is making his way out of here, and we're rocking and rolling over there to the next segment. If you're ready to rewrite your script, yes, let us know in the comments. Good morning, Shelly Spence. Good to see you here. And if today's conversation is resonating with you, listen, hit the like button, subscribe, share this episode.